Dancing Rabbit, thank you so much for being here today. It's really exciting to see all these people and to have such a glorious day for our open house. My name is Sharon, and I have lived at Dancing Rabbit for about 4 years. And I'm going to be sharing with you an overview of Dancing Rabbit, and then you'll get more details as you go along the tour. Dancing Rabbit is an intentional community, meaning we have chosen to live together here in community. And we're an eco-village. And that means that we are looking towards living in a more sustainable way, to live more lightly on the earth, finding more ecological ways. And our community is really a great big experiment, because as we search for lighter ways to live, we don't really know what works necessarily. There are lots of things to try, and we're trying them, but we don't necessarily have all the answers of what is sustainable living. So that's what we're all about, kind of try it out. How does it work? What's practical? What can actually make a village sustainable? And so our mission is to live it, learn about it, and actually to share it with others. And that's why we're having this open house today, and tours and all kinds of other educational things we do as part of our mission, is to share what we have learned, including some of the things that we learned haven't worked so well. That's learning too. So we live 70 people in this community, 70-ish people, and we range from ages 6 months to 65 years. So we have quite a diversity of ages. And we intend to grow, another part of our mission is to grow to a village of 500 to 1,000 people. A lot of communities, there are a lot of intentional communities around the world, and many of them tend to stay kind of small. We're purposely wanting to grow to the size of a small town so that we can demonstrate how towns out there in the world can actually do this, live in a more sustainable manner. We have 280 acres, and we spend most of our time in the denser part of the village, which is where you'll be touring around. It was planned this way. It kind of using a European model of a dense village and then agricultural and wildlands surrounding the village. It's also and that's why we have our stop right here, it's a pedestrian-oriented village. It's really important to us to keep our streets, and these are our streets, user-friendly. So we walk around and bike around the village. Occasionally we'll have a motorized vehicle come down to make deliveries or have access for ambulances and things like that. But basically we're on foot or on bicycle around the village. We have our own system of governance here. We abide by all the federal, state, local laws that there are, and we have our own set of decisions, we call them, not necessarily laws, agreements that we have made. And we work really hard on that to figure out and make decisions in what we call consensus. So for the first 16 years, Dancing Rabbit's about to turn 16, we have made decisions that way, where everyone in the village comes together, or has an opportunity to come together and have input and make a decision that everyone can live with. Doesn't necessarily mean we're jumping up and down happy about these decisions, but we can live with them. And so that is the way that we have governed up until now. And it's pretty exciting. We're launching a new system of governance that we call the Village Council. And so we'll have 7 people making decisions for us with lots of input. And we've spent 2 years crafting this new way of governing. It's an experiment. We don't know if it'll work, but we're willing to try it. So 2 key words for Dancing Rabbit, for me, is one is experimentation, I mentioned that, and the other is diversity. And you'll see as you go throughout the village, we are very diverse in many ways. We have different building styles, we have different lifestyles, different diets, different spiritual practices. We're diverse. What holds us together is that when we become members here, we all agree to live by 6 ecological covenants. And as you go through the tour, you'll hear about those covenants. I'm going to tell you about one, and it happens to be the one that actually drew me here to Dancing Rabbit. I was a bicycle activist in my past life, and so our transportation covenant really drew me here. When we become members, we agree to not to use or store private motorized vehicles here on at Dancing Rabbit. And that is to reduce our use of fossil fuel, as well as to save on resources, because every motorized vehicle, if we all had 70 motorized vehicles here, we'd have to have a huge parking lot and lots of metal and lots of all kinds of other things that cars need go into that. So we have 4 motorized vehicles, and we have a cooperative, and we share them. We check them out, and we often do a lot of ride share. So you'll see rabbits, people who live at Dancing Rabbit, kind of piled into a car, because we really encourage sharing rides. 3 of the vehicles are powered by biodiesel for most of the year, and one is right behind you. It is an electric vehicle.
It's a what, ma'am?
Electric vehicle. Yeah. And we also encourage walking and bicycling. And right around the corner here, you'll see Bike World, which is where we store bikes that we just have for people to use for free. And you'll see kids kind of tooling around on bicycles, and so it's really encourage other methods besides cars to get around.
Could you use more bikes?
Can we use more bikes? Always. Good working bikes. Yeah. Okay, any questions about what I've said so far? Great. Well, just want you to know as you go through the village that we are a village in progress. We're very much under construction, and so you'll see different stages of construction as you go through the village.
So hi, my name's Tony, and I'm going to talk to you about renewable energy. But before I talk about solar and wind, I'm going to talk to you about conservation, because conservation is really the key to making renewable energy affordable. And so at Dancing Rabbit, we've managed to reduce our electricity needs to about 10% of what the average American uses in terms of electricity. We use only the most efficient appliances, and we've changed all of our light bulbs to compact fluorescents and LEDs. We do a lot of things without electricity that you might normally do with electricity. So we have clotheslines and just a number of things that we heat with wood, etc. And so we've managed to reduce our energy needs, and that's always going to be the most affordable way to reduce your costs and to reduce your impact. But then once we've done that, we're producing all of our power with renewable energy, and so that means solar power and also some wind power. You'll see around the village a few small wind turbines. We have about 40 kilowatts of solar installed in the community and about 5 kilowatts of wind, and that produces all the electricity that we use here. For 15 years, all of our systems were what were called off-grid systems, and so each household or each cluster of houses had its own system, its own bank of batteries. Whenever it was cloudy or at night, they were drawing energy from those batteries, and then they charged them back up during the day when it was sunny or when it was windy. We've now gone to a grid-tied system, so we're actually importing and exporting power with the local utility. And so when it's sunny, we're exporting power. When it's cloudy or dark, we're actually importing power. We've agreed as a community to export twice as much power as we import to make sure that we are offsetting all of the impacts of the energy that we're using from coal or nuclear or natural gas-fired power plants. And so we're actually a net exporter of energy at this point, and we've reduced our carbon from electricity to 0 or even negative. And that's a big deal because electricity accounts for about 40% of the carbon dioxide that Americans are producing. And so by reducing that impact, we're cutting our impact significantly. And it's something that you can do as well. It's become much more affordable to do solar. When we first moved here, solar was about $5 per watt of solar panel. It's now under $1 per watt. And so you can install a system on your own home or on your garage or on your barn, whatever it might be, and produce power and offset your electricity bill and reduce that. But again, the first thing I would suggest is figuring out ways that you can reduce the power that you're using by turning things off, by getting more efficient appliances.
Welcome to our community building. My name's Nathan. I'll be talking to you about this building today. Right now we're in what we often refer to as the great room because it gets many different uses, sort of more than a living room. So people will eat in this room, we've had dance parties in this room, people have done yoga in this room, gets lots of different uses. And this building as a whole gets lots of different uses, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit, about some of what you can't see that's further back in the building. But this building is a 2,000 square foot green building that was ground was broken on the building in 2003 and construction was completed in 2004. So we've had this building here for a while now. And the building is owned by our land trust, which owns all of our land and owns a few of our buildings that we share. And then the rest of the buildings in the community are owned privately. So this is really one of the few buildings that everybody in the community has access to. And we have about 75 people that rely on this building in one way or another. In terms of the building construction, this building is a green building versus a natural building. And a natural building is basically one in which the materials are things like straw bale for insulation or earthen plasters, things like that. And you can have a natural building that is also a green building, where a green building is a building that's constructed with a high level of energy efficiency in the design. So this building has a lot of conventional materials that you can see just looking here, the drywall, concrete slab foundation, but it also has a lot of design elements that are set up to improve the energy performance of the building. So I think Tony was mentioning the passive solar design, which you could see here with the south-facing windows, some clear story windows up top there, help the heat come in the summertime, keep it nice and warm in here, especially in the late fall and the early spring in Missouri, where we get a little bit more sunlight. In those times of day, if it's a really sunny day, we don't really have to heat the building at all. It's very nice. We also have in the floor, we have radiant heating, which is tubes filled with water. Sometimes they're filled with another material like glycol. And we heat the water that goes into the tubes, and then that heats the slab, which is a lot more energy efficient than heating the air. Because if you just heat the air in a building, the moment you open the door to go outside, you're losing a lot of heat really quickly. But when you heat the slab of the building, you can open the door to go outside, and you lose some air out the building, and some of the heat goes with it, but you have this giant thermal battery, basically, that holds that heat and keeps it in the building for a much longer period of time, which significantly reduces the heating loads. So in addition to the passive solar design and the radiant barriers, this building uses a lot of insulation. The walls are blown cellulose, which is basically shredded newspaper. A lot of blown cellulose extra thick in the ceiling, which helps keep the building a lot warmer with a lot lower heating costs. And I guess that's it for the energy performance stuff. Aside from the panels, which you saw on the ceiling or the roof of this building, the panels provide right now currently about 90% of what this building consumes. So the other 10% comes from the microgrid that Tony was talking to you all about, and that little extra bit, we don't use that much. It works out to about $15 a month in additional electricity costs above and beyond what the building is producing itself from the panels that you see on it. So the last piece that I want to talk about in this building is the other uses that you can't readily see in here, and it's really important. You know, Tony talks about conservation as one of the major ways to reduce one's ecological impact. So I, for example, have an online business, and I use internet in my own home, but then but I still use a lot of functions that this building provides, like the showers that are in here and things like that. So in the back, what you can't see, there's showers, there's bathrooms, there's an office with internet, there's a kitchen right here, and people get the opportunity to pick and choose which of those services they want to use, which ones they don't want to pay for, which is really important. Coming from a culture where we're used to having a high degree of autonomy, it provides a way for us to experiment with sharing in ways that work well for us without being forced into sharing in ways that don't. Like, I would go crazy if I was trying to share an office and run my online business at the same time. So that flexibility is really helpful, and it means that I can live in a building that's 225 square feet. That doesn't cost nearly as much to build, doesn't cost nearly as much to heat, right? And that's possible because we share all of these other sorts of things, like, you know, living space, showers, those sorts of things. Does anybody have any questions about this building?
How much did it cost you to build it?
So this building, when we paid for it, was way below the cost of what somebody else would have had to pay to build it, because a friend of ours is a contractor on the building, and he gave us a really good price on the building, and then he lost money on it. But with that, the deal that we got out of it was we paid $110,000 for the building, and inflation adjusted for today's dollars, that's about $140,000, which works out to $1 per square foot of $70 a square foot. Or a cost for a building like this that would probably be closer to $180,000, $200,000, something like that.
And how many square feet is it?
2,000.
Excuse me, Nathan, can you address he was mentioning buying new things, but you don't buy new things. You buy new surplus things. And
Sure. Well, and so like one of our covenants is that any of the wood that's used in construction needs to come from either locally harvested sources or reclaimed sources. So all the lumber that's in this building, the studs and bracing and all that sort of stuff is all reclaimed or locally harvested. And like the insulation in the walls, we're not using just fiberglass batting. It's blown cellulose. You know, that's using a shredded newspaper. So that's reclaiming it. So, but you know, I mean, some of the things are new, like fixtures and stuff like that. So it depends on what you're talking about. And I think the drywall we probably got new. It's pretty hard to get drywall used and reuse it. Though some people here have done that.
I've seen you got the blackboard. Do you have classes in here? Or?
We have meetings in here. So we use this whiteboard up here, and we use that chalkboard quite a lot when we have our meetings.
Where's your tour guide? Who do you got? Oh, hi, Hassan. If you had to ask me what I put my attention to, I would say probably sustainable architecture. In my 8 years there, or here at Dancing Rabbit, I've focused mostly on sustainable architecture and also spatial planning for Dancing Rabbit Village as a whole. So that's what we're going to talk about for my 10 minutes. We're going to talk about those two things. So one of the things that's exciting about Dancing Rabbit is that we have a pretty bold mission. This whole idea of creating a demonstration project to be a sustainable, to show sustainability for the world. Like, that's pretty lofty. How are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to tell you. The key word here today is change. Change is in the air at Dancing Rabbit. When I moved here in 2005, we became 23 people with my family of 5. There's my daughter right there in the corner. She's so cute. She was something like this big when we moved here. But it started at 6, then it was 23, and now it's over 70. So we continue to grow. In fact, throughout my entire lifetime, Dancing Rabbit will continue to grow and change. That's what I can expect in my golden years, Dancing Rabbit to continuing to be growing and changing. We are at the north end. We would be considered right here. This orange building, I'll be showing you in a minute a little bit more about. You can see some pictures. But basically, that's where we're at now. This is what we're going to be. We are going to be a village that sort of encircles our town center, including our new common house. We are looking at housing on the land that we have now over 300 people. We own 280 acres, but only 40 of those will ever be built upon. Once we surpass our current 40 acres, we will look at building on either to the east or to the south in order to meet our 500 to 1,000 goal. Okay, excuse me just for a second. I want to make sure I get it all in. Okay, so we have to maintain systems in order to be able to grow and change. And what I'm talking about is mostly like the hands-on systems of the infrastructure. But there's also things that you're not, and you're going to see a lot of that today. You're going to see houses. We're going to talk about big scale buildings. You're not going to see some of the processy stuff. You're not going to see how we relate to each other, how we deal with interpersonal conflict, how we make decisions together, how we choose to live together. It's sort of, you'll have to see it between the lines and ask your guide to tell you a little bit about that. It's important stuff. As far as the spatial infrastructure, we are now starting to think very seriously on a community scale. We've now been here for almost 16 years. We celebrate our sweet 16th next month, which is very exciting for us. And so, as Tony probably told you, we now have a grid intertied power system. We are about to embark on a village-wide gray water system. I invite Hassan to tell you a little bit more about why we don't have black water while you're going around the village. And so we are building systems together. We obviously now have roads. You'll be walking along roads. So we are building common infrastructure. And always when we're building, we're thinking, how sustainable can we be? How can we create a village as sustainably as possible? And I'm not going to surprise anyone here by saying we're not perfect. But we are striving towards being as sustainable as possible. And we are learning from our mistakes and our successes as we go along. So some interesting things that I want to tell you. We currently have 4 washing machines in the village, 5 showers, 8 shared kitchens, and 35 homes. And this is the most exciting part for me. I love saying this one. So Dancing Rabbit has figured out how to reduce its consumption of water, electricity, natural gas, and total vehicle miles traveled by 90% over the U.S. average. Again, electricity, water, natural gas, and total vehicle miles. It's a pretty interesting statistic. So, with that, we've now embarked, we're continuing to grow. We're really committed to resource sharing. We're really committed to community building. And so we are now embarking on a new project. It's called the Green Community Building. It's sort of, it takes all the lessons, all the successes that we've gained so far, and we're putting it into a new building, which is going to be centered right in town center. So right over there, over by the solar panels, and that lean-to is going to be a new community center. It's designed, 2 minutes, thank you. It's designed to meet the most stringent of sustainability certifications. Has anyone here heard of LEED? Okay, LEED is a U.S. Green Building Council program. It has changed the industry. We now have any Missouri state building has to meet LEED Silver standards. But there are 4 different standards for LEED. We are going for the most stringent, Platinum. So we are doing that, but that's not all that we're doing. There's also a new certification program called Living Building Challenge. And it was started by the Cascadia branch of the U.S. Green Building Council. And it's called a challenge. Buildings that meet this standard are actually called living buildings. When we meet this standard, we'll be able to call ourselves the Living Building Green Community Center. And it is a holistic vision of how to be sustainable in 7 different focus areas. And we're striving to meet full living building challenge as well. And so, and the reason we're able to do that, and the reason we're able to meet those and succeed at those, is because we've already been practicing sustainable architecture for 15 years. We've already been making our mistakes and learning from our successes. And so this is very much a very DIY sort of project. It's being built in-house. We have a contractor who's a friend of the community who built our original common house, who's working with us again, and we're going to be building it ourselves. We're building it using straw bales. I'm sure Hassan will point out some straw bale buildings. We'll be using reclaimed siding, just the same as this one is. We'll be using honey locust beams, posts and beams, which I'm sure Hassan can show you as we go past Ironweed Kitchen. So we've already got a lot of the building techniques down, and we're taking it to a new level in this project. This will serve as our nonprofit office center. We'll have 1,500 square foot, as well as space for 120 people to eat together in this great room, have library offices and a commercial kitchen.
Off to the other side of the road, Thomas lives in this structure. Very small little house, totally meets his needs. Bed, wood burning stove, dresser, and he has access to the common house for those other amenities. And then this one that has board and batten siding has light clay straw infill as the insulative material. That's taking a part of straw bale and mixing it with hydrated clay slip we call it, to create a weather-resistant straw product. The clay will absorb the moisture instead of the straw, and it's easy to pack and stack any depth that one chooses, rather than a straw bale that's standard depth.
Did the board and batten go on after or before?
It did go on after. It went on after, allowing both sides to dry completely before it was enclosed.
So is there wooden frames in there too?
Yep, wooden frame in that building.
So anyway, there are people lives in all these little houses, huh?
Yep. Mm-hmm. This is, so Jennifer was talking about where we are now in the village and where we're going. This is kind of off to the side, but right now it's almost the center of what's already populated.
So what about the land?
The land in general is owned by a collective, but each house space is on what we call a warren or a lot. Rabbits live in a warren, so we call our lots warrens. And so one can lease a warren from the collective, and that's divvied up by square foot. There's a few different rates that we rent at, and there's actually a lot here that's available for the future. If we come this direction, there's the next talk is on sustainable food.
These sunflowers.
We don't have black water here. We have one of our covenants is to reclaim all of our organic material. That includes our excrement. So we do humanure systems. There's a pretty well-known book now, the Humanure Manual, talks about really safe ways to process human manure. After about 2 years, it's completely inert to any harmful bacteria, and we can put it on orchards and things to sequester into the ground and fertilize our trees with.
Welcome everybody, my name's Ted, and I'm a member of Ironweed Co-op, and that is also the name of the building that you are sitting in right now, or standing in. This is an eating cooperative, so this is 6 adults and a child. We get together daily for our meals, and we share the various parts of that, from the cooking to the eating to the preserving. You can see some of the books on the table that address some of the things that we do, from fermentation to canning and preserving, dehydrating. We have chickens that live in the coop just to the other side of that wall, so lots of functions built into this building, including a pantry for cool storage built in there. If you want to open that door, you can see in some of our storage of food from this year. And also in the center here, you'll find some of the products that are just coming through right now. We have some of our canned and preserved
tomatoes and pickles and things that are from the pantry, and then dried things. If you walked by on the road, you may have seen our solar dehydrators. So when the sun is shining for days on end, most of these things that we are drying to preserve for the winter can be dehydrated just by the power of the sun. It's a very nice thing to just put it out there, come back at the end of the day, or maybe after 2 days and have it be done. If the sun should go away while we're trying to dry something, we have in reserve a dehydrator that we can plug in to finish things off, and that's run on our off-grid system, which is mostly based on that wall there behind the tapestry, and the batteries are all under the bench there. And this is an off-grid system. We have a grid-connected system now on farm that's powered by the sun, but this building remains off-grid, and the system in this building is based on 10 solar panels and the turbine that's behind here, and serves this kitchen, our house that you just walked past, and 3 other cabins, as well as a work site that's across the way, and needs access to power for heavier machines and things like that. So yeah, there's a whole lot of ways, as I said, in which we come together. One of the concepts around which we are built is sort of bioregionalism. We are trying to get our food from as nearby as possible, is what it comes down to. Because if you may have heard the fact that, or the fact more or less, that every bite you're taking in this country, on average, has traveled maybe 1,200 miles, something like that. So the more that you can find local sources of food to meet your needs, the less of that energy is being expended to get that food to you. Likewise, we're also trying to make the best use of the food that we can. Something like 1/3 of the food in the world gets wasted, which is hard to stomach, knowing when there are still people who don't have enough, and when we're worried about having enough for the future. We already have enough. It's just a matter of making sure that it actually goes to where it's needed. So one thing that's nice about eating in a group is that people like Hassan and I are willing to eat things when other people have given up on it and say, that one's ready for the chickens, but Hassan and I will eat it, no problem. And if we won't, then the chickens will, so that turns it into eggs, and that's a good thing as well. And in general, trying to make hardy the local sources of food, so that if it ever gets harder, when it gets harder, even the big oil companies these days will tell you that there's a limit to how much oil there is. So theoretically, it may get harder for that 1,200 miles of food to get to you. And if you have put in the work ahead of time to developing your own sources, edible landscaping, growing fruit trees around your house, whatever it takes, we get little bits from here and there. We have this peach tree that's out here that's putting on fruit right now. It's got little worms in it, but there's so much good stuff there still, and we'll put it up and make jam and whatever it is. So trying to make good use of all the resources that we have available to us. And a little bit more about this building. It took about 6 years to get to where it was being used as a kitchen. Broke ground in 2004, started using it in 2010. But it is straw bale on the north side. It's a good insulation against the coldest parts of winter that come at us. On the south side, it's cob. So this is clay, sand, and straw for the most part on these walls here. It's good for sculpting and decorating in, putting bottles through. All kind, you can make art to your heart's desire, and we did, which is why it took 6 years to build it. But the cob on the south side is intentional. It's a good capacitor. It holds heat. It holds cool. So in the winter, when we want as much free heat as we can, we've got the sun heating the greenhouse here. That heats this cob mass, and it radiates into the building at night to keep it on a nice, steady, even temperature. We also have good earthen mass here. This floor is connected to the core earth temperature underneath. As I said, that we have cool storage in the northeast corner there. It's the coolest part of the building. And then for things like potatoes and whatnot that we've already harvested and put up for winter, and other storage crops, we now have a root cellar that's built into the north side of our house there. And so we have that extra level of places to put food, store it, keep it safe for as long as possible. We planted our own seed potatoes that we had grown last year, this past spring, and have a beautiful crop from them. So now we can go all the way through from one cycle to the next, and we're pretty happy about that. Does anybody have any questions about this building or food here or anything else?
How's the drought affected your
it's not been that bad. On a gardening scale, it's certainly feasible. I have a solar water pumping system, so a couple solar panels and a little submersible pump. So we've been able to pump water out of the pond just over here, and to keep our garden going. And out in the orchard, I had new fruit trees this year, so I was toting out buckets of water to make sure that they got a minimum every so often. Certainly on a larger scale with field agriculture, which we're starting to get into more, and which you'll hear more about at the next step, that can be a bigger liability. We're looking at putting in more water catchment on the land, catchment ponds and things like that. But catching all the water that you can when it does come is one good way that we do that. And so you'll look at this building and other buildings, you'll see that there are water barrels, rainwater barrels, most everywhere. And we catch, we have a 1,700 gallon cistern that we've just put in for this building, so that catches water off of this kitchen and off of our house. And we have a cistern under our house as well. We have never had to refill that one with county water in the 10 years it's been there. It's always enough from the rainwater over the course of the year. So, yeah.
Do you grow the percentage of the food it takes to feed your community here?
We grow, I'd say, nearly 100% of the produce that we consume in season. Certainly off season, some people supplement. Different kitchens have different standards. You know, Bobolink kitchen up there will eat only what they've canned all summer. This kitchen does a lot of canning and preserving. We will also supplement with some staples like, you know, potatoes or onions if we run out of those of our own. And so we do our best. The frontier for us is grains, beans, and things like that take more of a large scale sort of focus on that. And it's only just recently that we've gotten to where there are enough people who are finished building their house and having their basic infrastructure in place that they can put attention to growing food on the land. But we have lots more chickens and ducks and goats and sheep and things now, and it is growing ever more complex of a food system on farm, which is really nice to see. Yeah. Meanwhile, we're very grateful for Sandhill Farm, one of our local communities, and others in the area who, especially this year, have come out. We've had farmers markets up here that have just been the best I've ever seen, and having that ability to buy local food in abundance is a really beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
What's your floor made out of?
This is all earth. It's much the same as the walls. It's just slight differences but it's basically clay, sand, and straw. Or sometimes for the finished layer, we'll use cattail fluff as the binder. It's sort of like, you know, rebar and concrete. We've also used the same material for our countertops in here. We were going to do something in concrete to sort of match the organic shape of the walls, but then we realized that earth was really the spirit of this building, and so it was more appropriate to do it with earth. Works for floors, people walk on it all the time. Why not do it as a countertop? And it's worked really well. Linseed oil is the thing that we finish it with, and a little bit of beeswax as well to make it sort of beat up water. Meanwhile, this is our heating in the winter. It's a mass heater slash wood cook stove. So and it's all built by hand. The guts of it are an electric oven box, and then there's a wood box here, and the flue gases wrap all around this thing. The material is perlite cob. The perlite is good at insulating, and it reflects the heat from the gases all at that oven box so that it heats up. The whole cooktop becomes a heating surface. This is sort of hot, medium, simmer, and it's a really nice thing. Just keeps the heart of the kitchen warm all through the winter. And the mass walls that are built of cob are good capacitors. They hold that heat that you scrub out of the air from heating the space, and they sort of re-radiate it at night. As I was talking about, the cob from being heated by the sun does the same thing. So that's sort of the concept. The mass keeps the temperature on a relatively small variation from day to night.
Where does the smoke go?
The flue goes out under the bench that you're sitting on, then takes the detour through the greenhouse and up and out there. So by the time it gets out to the outside, there's very little heat left into it. Most of it's been scrubbed into the earthen surface that it's traveling through and staying in the building.
So how do you avoid a creosote buildup?
Creosote buildup. We do clean our flues seasonally. Once a season for sure. In general, if you get the heat scrubbed out and if you keep the double wall pipe when it gets to the outside where it's really cool, we haven't run into too many problems with yearly cleaning and whatnot. And we've had systems that have been online for 10 years or more. So as long as you take care of it, it'll do all right.
Is this the earthen floor, the way you make it? Is this how they make earthen floors 300 years ago?
There are a lot of different traditions. I'd say that just tamped earth, that just walked on and maybe sprinkled with water or oil or something like that was probably more common. I'd say this is partly a product of natural building and partly a product of the modern era where we want floors that will stay dry and be more or less sweepable, moppable, etc. And these earthen floors can have that done to them. If they're properly treated with oil and whatnot, then they're good for mopping if you need to. So it's sort of the updated version, and sometimes you'll have a vapor barrier underneath to make sure.
You said there are how many people sharing this?
6 adults and a child these days.
So so it's sort of like a little community within a community. Is that
yes, and Dancing Rabbit is built on the community of communities model, where we expect people to sort of make their own cooperations and associations within the whole, and so it's just one form of that.
Morning, noon, and night?
You're on your own for breakfast, but lunch and dinner is cooked and served. Yep.
Right here, huh?
Right here. Yep. So we share our meals every day, and it really becomes our more or less like family.
Do you raise these mushrooms?
I just harvested those mushrooms right before lunch. They come off some logs that are right behind the shed there, and shiitakes is what those. Yep. So one more way to glean a little more food out of the landscape.
How do you prepare them to eat?
I love to saute them up in butter. Personally, there's not much better you can do to them than that, in my opinion. But you can also, put them in soup or whatever you like. And we dehydrate a lot to have in the winter as well.
Welcome to Dancing Rabbit. My name is Bear. I've lived here for 7 years now, and I came here first as an intern to work on a building project, and I've been building ever since. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I like to talk about. So, welcome.
Bear, do you need a timekeeper?
Yeah, if you'll just holler when I do ramble on.
I'll just holler when we got 2 minutes left.
Thanks.
I want to do one thing too,
Okay,
sir.
sure.
Just gonna move this over just a bit.
Okay. All right. So, Dancing Rabbit experimental building is a cornerstone of Dancing Rabbit. So much so, in fact, that when we were looking for land at where to start this community, being able to do experimental building was high on the list of priorities. So Scotland County does not have a permitting process or building codes. And so we're able, as you've no doubt been able to see on the tour so far, do just about whatever we want with our buildings. So another interesting thing is that by and large, the people that are building at Dancing Rabbit are amateur builders. I don't know, other than Kurt, maybe no one that is building here or has built here worked as a builder in the outside world. So we've done a lot of experimenting, and we're all learning on the job, and that has worked out well sometimes and not so well other times. This house is the second house that Alyssa and I built here at Dancing Rabbit. It worked out a lot better than the first house we built. This is a straw bale building. It's an infill technique, meaning that the roof is supported by wood framing and the straw bales are the insulation in between. We chose to do earthen plaster on the interior and the exterior of those straw bales, mostly because we wanted to, the earthen plaster is far more user friendly. The alternative that you've seen on some of these buildings here, Julie's house has some tint in it, but any of the buildings that you see white plaster on are lime based. That lime is a caustic material when you're working with it, so you have to be more careful about how you're working with it. We went with the earthen plaster, and in order to protect that plaster, because earthen plaster is far more susceptible to damage than lime plaster, we have the hip roof that goes all the way around and protects on all four sides. We also sheathed the bottom half of the wall in the cutoff panels, or sorry, cutoffs from a pallet mill nearby. One of the covenants, ecological covenants that we agree to at Dancing Rabbit is that all of the lumber that we use in our buildings will have been harvested from this bioregion or reclaimed and reused. So every building that you've seen so far will see all of the lumber in those buildings has either been harvested from the bioregion or reclaimed.
What we're showing you now is kind of like the growing edge of the village. This is kind of a metaphor, this road. It's like the road ends, right? But it's not the end of the road for Dancing Rabbit, because we got a long ways to go. We're looking at like 500 people possibly in this village in the long term. So we got a lot of planning, growth, and development to do, a lot of thinking about how we're going to do it in a sustainable way. Our plan right now is for this road to continue on and loop around, up around, through a whole new residential neighborhood up here. Okay, so there'll be a lot more houses, a lot more places for people like you to come and live. And it's going to be developed pretty densely. We like to have things done so that they're close together. We don't have to walk so far. It's a pedestrian village, okay? And we don't have to run our pipeline so far. We don't have to build so many roads because we're building things close together so they're more accessible. And one thing we're trying to think about as a village, as we have you come and visit, is to remember this is a demonstration village. And so we're asking you to take away things that you feel like you could maybe do in your own city or village. Maybe there's a part of the town that might be car-free. A lot of cities are doing that. Things where you can make it more friendly for pedestrians and bicycles. Just kind of, we're not the ones that have all the answers, but we're looking for the answers, and then we want to share them, the things that we find out. So it's kind of a fun experiment for us to be doing this. So on the right, you see what I talked about, the residential development. And then to the far left, there's a slope of about 18 acres to the beyond those trees, beyond that that gazebo type thing. And that's where we're doing our largest agriculture we've done so far. We have a goal as a village to grow the majority of our own food. Not the majority, but a major part. So some say, well, let's grow all of our own food. We're not doing that. We want to collaborate with other growers nearby. We want to be part of the overall surrounding community, yet we want to do as much local food as we can. So we want to buy from local farmers. We want to coordinate with farmers in the village and outside the village so that not everybody grows corn and not everybody grows turnips, but we're kind of coordinating on that. So we feel like we've got a pretty good plan. We're just getting started on it, and we're not real experienced farmers, so we're going to learn a lot. But we do plan to regenerate the earth. We're not going to do like a lot of American farms are doing, where they're taking everything out of the earth. No more humus or life is left there. And we're going to regenerate it to make it a living system again, totally organic. So that's kind of our dream as for an agricultural system. We're going to do a lot of animals. They can help regenerate the land, right, with the manure, etc. And they can be a real good source of food. And so we're beginning to look at all those things that might actually be a demonstration for how farming can be done more sustainably and collaborating with other farmers nearby.
When you say agriculture, and you say we, is this the entire village is going to be involved in this, or is it just the ones that are interested? Or
That's an excellent question, and it goes for the whole kind of philosophy of the village. We are pretty independent. We do what we want to do as an individual, but we collaborate. So we're making the opportunity for people to do all kinds of farming, and they're already starting. I know we're doing animals because people are already doing it, but I can't predict. And we don't have a plan to say this is the whole 10-year plan for Dancing Rabbit agriculture. We're leaving up to individuals the great American independent way, yet with lots of simple and collaborative thinking, so we do end up ending up kind of in the same place as far as the goal of sustainable farming and sustainable living.
And so it's a lease situation, very similar to.
Right, it's the same exact similar situation as leasing home spaces. Yeah, okay. You lease based on so much a month, but the agricultural land is cheaper to lease, so that's nice.
Everybody, welcome to the Milkweed Mercantile. My name is Aline. My husband Kurt and I, over here in the kitchen, opened this 3 years ago. It's a bed and breakfast, a cafe, a bar, a store, whatever we need it to be. It serves as kind of an informal community center for Dancing Rabbit. We moved here 14 years ago, and there wasn't anything here on the land except a bunch of bushes. And it's really exciting to see what's happened now. I've been asked to talk about how people make a living here at Dancing Rabbit, which is not really so different from the wider community, except that most of us do not have 40-hour-a-week jobs. We mostly we work more than 40 hours a week, I believe, but we don't have one job that we go to every day from 9 to 5. Folks do everything from a lot of website design, a lot of computer-based things. We have a woman here who is a nurse. She commutes to Memphis. She's the only one who actually commutes to a job. We run the bed and breakfast. We serve pizza every Thursday night where it's all made from scratch, and so we hire folks to come and help us with that. We also have a certified commercial kitchen, so there's a woman here who comes and bakes 24 loaves of bread every week and sells them throughout the community. People do a lot of very creative things for money. If you're a builder, you always have a job. If you're a gardener or a farmer, you always have a job, although you probably make a lot less money than you should. We've even had people, we had a woman who lived here and she taught Latin via Skype to students, prep school students on the Upper East Side of New York, via Skype. And I love that, from the middle of nowhere, Missouri. Because it costs less money to live here, we don't have to spend as much of our life energy working for money, although we all do a lot of work that doesn't necessarily pay. We all are on committees. Because we do all the governance of Dancing Rabbit ourselves. We really try to be good neighbors. I mean, we, Dancing Rabbit as an entity, this may have changed, but in '99, we had a choice because the Land Trust, which is a nonprofit organization, owns the land. We had a choice of not paying property tax or some sort of, what was that, property tax? But because we were a nonprofit, but we chose to pay it because we felt that it was our obligation to the wider community to be a good neighbor. We are supporting ourselves in a way that is really in alignment with what we believe. You know, we get to work with each other. Our house is 10 steps away. Our friends come in and we know exactly what they drink and what they want on their pizzas every week. The kids come in, we run a tab for everybody so no one has to carry their wallet. The kids come in and say, I'd like a root beer and put it on my mom's tab. And we know that's okay because their mom has said so. And it's a really fun way to make a living. And then we have 4 bed and breakfast rooms. And so we meet folks from outside. And we've met some amazing people. We have a lot of fun. So, I mean, I have 20 million more ideas than I will ever have time to do. I mean, you'll notice it's neatly mulched out front, but there isn't anything planted. You know, last year I had tomatoes out there, but this year there's nothing. Someday, you know, we'll have a full garden. Right now I have mulch and a couple of really twiggy plum trees out on the side. So, anyway, I just get carried away.
You had a question from the red.
She answered it.
Oh, okay.
Aline, address where you all came from.
I am from the Bay Area. Kurt actually is from Kansas City, and we're really kind of a stereotype. I was leading backpacking trips for the Sierra Club, and Kurt came on my trip, and one thing led to another, and we got married. And yeah, we were living in Berkeley. Well, he moved to Berkeley. I lured him there with coffee and bread. And he heard an NPR story with the word sustainable community on the radio, and he did a web search, and even in '99, Dance Rabbit was made of a bunch of geeks, and so we had a website even back then, and Kurt found the website, and he said, wow, look at this, isn't this great? And I said, well, yeah, it's great, but there's no way in hell I'm moving to a hippie commune in the middle of nowhere. I don't even know where Missouri is. So I've been much humbled. I love Missouri now. I understand Missouri. I know where it is. Of course, our friends still say, are you near Bozeman? No, that's Montana. Yeah, so we've been here for 14 years and have seen a lot of growth and a lot of new people come in. It's really exciting for us when people join who bring new skills and new interests, and yeah, it's really fun.